Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, ma ba'd. I welcome you all to the class of Al-Aqeedah fillah. And we are doing some qawaid regarding the Asma wa Sifat. He brought 5 qawaid till now. Let's quickly see what were theirs. And in those, inshallah. And we will cover this, inshallah, when whenever we read the book Al-Qawaid Al-Muthla of Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah. But there are 5 principles which we did. The first principle is what is said about some attributes applies to other attributes also. So let's read the Arabic also. Al-Qawlu, the qaida is Al-Qawlu fi ba'd as-sifati kal-qawli fi ba'diha akhar. So if you say this is applicable to this attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is applicable to all of them. You cannot just say, okay, for this we make some rules and this we make some other rules. No. Al-Qaida Thaniya, the second rule is Al-Qawlu fi sifati kal-qawli fi dhat. If you say Allah has an essence, Allah has a zat, Allah is for example, Allah is eternal, for example. The same thing is for sifat also. Speaking about the attributes is like speaking about the essence of Allah. Very important of qaida. We cannot say we apply some rules for that of Allah and for some rules for sifat of Allah. No, everything is the same. Indeed, his hearing, his sight, his everything, subhanahu wa ta'ala, his speech is all eternal. Al-thabit, it is proven. And third principle is al-ittifaq fi al-asma'i la yaqtadi at-tasabi fi al-musammayat. Just because the names are similar doesn't mean the thing is the same. Right? For example, hand. It could be a hand of a human being, hand of an animal, hand of a clock. Right? Just because the name shares doesn't mean the same thing. And similarly, when Allah used the word Ali, Yadullah fawqa aydihim, it's not the same. We don't do any tashbih or tamthil or ta'atil or reject. Al-Qa'idatu Rabi'a la yusafillahu bin nafyil mahad. Allah is not described only in terms of negation. So you cannot just say Allah is not oppressor, Allah is not, you can't do Allah unless you prove, right? Unless you affirm the positive. So Allah is not an oppressor, that means there is complete justice. And because this is a way of some the people who write Allah is not this, Allah is not like, Allah is not living, not dead, and they keep on going there. We don't do that because the Quran, he gives examples from the Quran that mere negation is not not correct. What is correct is negation with the affirmation of the opposite. And negation should be general. It should not be so specific negation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fifth principle is words which may be true or false. So there are some words, al-alfazul muhama, I think it's muhama, haqqan wa batilan. So some alfaz are not there, it could be true and false, it could mean so many things. Like for example, having direction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some say, oh, so we have to ask him a question, what do you mean by direction? So we said, if you think that Allah is included in the heavens or something, or there's this particular direction, then we don't say. But if you mean that Allah is above the heavens and the earth, right, without the physical confines and all that, so we say if it's above, if it means istawa, yes, Allah has a jiha. Similarly, tahayyuz also, tahayyuz, that what tahayyuz كذلك التحيز إن كان المراد أن الله تحوزه المخلوقات. Tahayyuz means encompassing. So if Allah is encompassing in the meaning like that, makhluqat fahada batilun. Wa in arada annahu munhaz, if it means that he is separate from his makhluqat, then that is correct. So this is what discussion. So this is the 5th rule. Now we'll read the 6th rule. So alfadul muhama haqqan wa batilan. Some meanings we should ask, what do you mean by this? Al-Qa'ida Sadisa A'tilu sababuhu i'tiqadu at-tashbih awalan. This rule is anyone who denies the attributes is first doing tashbih. So what do you mean by that? So Allah is hand, for example, reject. Why, if you ask him why rejecting Allah's hand, yadullahi fawqa aydihim? Because how can we assume that Allah has a hand and then it is similar to human hands, and then how can Allah be similar? Laysa kamithlihi shay. laysa kamithlihi shay wa huwa as-sami'ul alim. So the one who's rejecting is first thinking that Allah's hand is like a human hand, and then say, Subhanallah, how can Allah have a hand? Naam. And so he is denying. So first he's doing tashbih, and then he is doing ta'til, and then he's doing ta'til. So that is the rule. So we ask him, don't do tashbih at all. Allah has said, Yadullahi fawqa aydihim, khalas. We accept it how it is without going into interpretation, and we don't say the kayfiyah of it, how it is. We don't do that. We don't know all that. We don't have any knowledge. وقد وضح هذه القاعدة العلامة الشيخ محمد الأمين الشنقيطي رحمه الله تعالى وبين أن أصل البلاء وأسه هو تنجس القلب وتلطخه وتدنسه بأقذاذ التشبيه. And we'll see the meanings of these words. But وقد وضح هذه القاعدة العلامة الشيخ محمد الأمين الشنقيطي. So Shaykh Shanqiti says that رحمه الله تعالى, he has explained this rule. And وبين, and he has explained that أن أصل البلاء, the original of this problem, bala, وأسه, I have to see this word. Okay, this word looks like Ussun is foundation. Yani Assasa yu'assisu, ta'sis foundation. Similarly, Asas or Ussun. So I think this is wa ussuhu, and his foundation is. So he says the asl al bala'i wa ussahu huwa tanajjusul qalb. Tanajjus is to make something najis, is the heart becoming impure. Wa talattukhuhu. Talattukh is also like talattaha, yatalattakhu is to be spoiled or stained. And tadannusu is also to become dirty. Wa talattukhuhu wa tadannusuhu. That means everything is becoming dirty. Why? Bi aqdar, by the dirt of aqdarut tashbih, with the dirt of tashbih, dirts of tashbih. So all this is problem is starting because you are doing because of dirty. Khadarun is a singular and the plural is aqdar. And talattukh is becoming stained, contaminated with the dirt of tashbih, filth of tashbih. So he says the rejection also starts with tashbih. For example, فَإِذَا سَمِعَ ذو القلب المتجنس بأقذار التشبيه صفة من صفات الكمال التي أثنى الله بها على نفسه. If he hears ذو القلب المتنجس, a dirty heart person hears بأقذار التشبيه, with the dirt, with the filth of tashbih, sifatan, he hears a sifa from the sifat al-kamal of the perfection, attributes of perfection, allati athna Allahu biha ala nafsi, which Allah has praised for himself, right? He himself has praised. Kanuzulihi ila sama, like Allah's descension to the heavens, ad-dunya fi thuluthil layl al-akhir, in the third of the night, right? The last third of the night, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends. So this person will be thinking, oh, how does he descend? And he goes into his logic and he tries to explain it, and then he says, I reject this, because he's doing tashbih with the descension of human beings. Or his istiwa, ascension over his throne, rising over his throne. And his coming of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. And other sifat of jalal, the majesty and perfection. فَإِنَّ أَوَّلَ مَا يَخْطُرُ فِي ذَهْنِهِ. So the first things which comes in his ذهني أن هذه الصفة تشبه صفة الخلق. That this sifa is like the sifa of the khalq, of the creation. He first think Allah is just saying, oh, it's like human beings. So that is what first thought. فَيَكُونُ قَلْبُهُ مُتَنَجِّسًا بِأَقْذَارِ التَّشْبِيهِ. So his heart is dirty with the dirt, with the filth of tashbih. لَا يُقَدِّرُ اللَّهُ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ وَمَا قَدَرُ اللَّهُ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ. So he does not have a correct estimation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَا يُعَظِّمُ اللَّهُ حَقَّ عَظَمَتِهِ. And he does not have ta'zeem of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he does not have estimate Allah with an estimation due, wrong estimation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or he does not venerate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as he should be venerated. Because he's doing tashbih in the beginning. حيث يسبق إلى ذهنه أن صفة الخالق تشبه صفة المخلوق أو تشبه صفة المخلوق. That the تشبه is correct, I think. Yeah, to resembles. تشبه صفة المخلوق, that the صفة الخالق is resembling the صفة of مخلوق. فيكون أولا نجس القلب متقذرا بأقذار التشبيه. So the first thing that crosses mind resembles, so the first is contaminated, متنجس, with the filth of tashbih. فيدعو شؤوم هذه التشبيه إلى أن ينفي صفة الخالق. So فيدعوه شؤوم هذا التشبيه. So the calamity, شؤوم is calamity, bad luck, misfortune. So the calamity of this tashbih is calling, the dirt of this tashbih leads him to reject. Reject the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla wa ala anhu biddi'ai annaha tashabbuhu sifat al-makhluq, because it is similar, it is tashbih of the makhluq. فيكون أولا مشبها. So first stage is what? He's a mushabbih first, and then وثانيا معطلا, and then he rejects. So we'll ask him, why are you starting with tashbih? فصار ابتداء وانتهاء متهجما على رب العالمين. So he starts with tashbih and ends up with ta'til, but from the beginning to end he's insulting. Mutahajjiman, okay, insulting on the Lord of the worlds. Yanfi sifat, he rejects, he refutes, denies his sifat. Inda biddi'ai anna tilka sifata la taliqu bihi, that the sifat, it is not attributed to him, right? It's not appropriate to him, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he rejects it. وذكر الشيخ رحمه الله تعالى قاعدة أصولية أطبق عليها. Sheikh mentioned a principle usul upon the scholars which are agreed, unanimous. عليها من يعتد به من أهل العلم, from the أهل العلم who are counted from the أهل العلم, they have a قاعدة also. وهي أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يجوز في حقه تأخير البيان عن وقت الحاجة. That it was not permissible for the Prophet ﷺ to delay teaching anything once it was needed. So there's some need. The situation is like Prophet should have mentioned, but he did not. That means there was no need of explanation. That means that is permissible. Right? So that is why sukut comes. No? The Prophet ﷺ was silent on some things. So if it was wrong, he would have said something, because it's not allowed for him to keep quiet when it's wrong. He will tell. Naam, la yajuzu fi haqqihi ta'khir al-bayani an waqt al-haja. So if there's a need, and Rasul should have spoken about it, it's not allowed to postpone it. ولا سيما في العقائد, especially in aqaid. ولو مشينا على فرضهم الباطل, even if we go, okay, even if we agree with you on the false argument that the apparent meaning أن ظاهر آيات الصفات الكفر, that the ظاهر, if you accept, oh, Allah has a hand, Allah is coming, Allah is descending, it means kufr. فالنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لم يؤول, the Rasul did not interpret al-istiwa bil-istila. The Prophet ﷺ never said istiwa means istila, means controlling. Istila means controlling. So ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa, they say it is istila. It means conquering or controlling. So Allah did not arise on the throne, over the throne, but he conquered. وَلَمْ يُؤَوَّلْ شَيْئًا مِنْ هَذِهِ التَّأْوِيلَاتِ. So they did not do any ta'wil. Rasulullah did not do any ta'wil. وَلَوْ كَانَ الْمُرَادُ بها هذه التاويلات لبادر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إلى بيانها. If these interpretations were there, the Prophet would have explained it, hastened to explain that. بادر إليه لأنه لا يجوز في حقه تأخير البيان في عن وقت الحاجة. So this is an important qaida. Anyone who says لا يجوز في حقه تأخير البيان عن وقت الحاجة. When there is, you cannot delay when there is a need. وبين الشيخ رحمه الله تعالى أن الواجب للمسلم إذا سمع وصفا وصف به خالق السماوات والأرض نفسه أو وصفه به رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يملأ صدره من التعظيم. The Shaykh explained, how should the heart of a person be that when a Muslim, Shaykh Shanqiti rahimahullah, that when a Muslim is obliged to do when he hears another attribute of the creator of the heavens and the earth ascribed to himself, always the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all these attributes which you don't understand or whatever, you should fill your heart ta'zeem, most majesty for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يُجْسِمُ بِأَنَّ ذَلِكَ الْوَصْفِ بَالِغٌ مِنْ غَايَاتِ الْكَمَالِ وَالْجَلَالِ وَالشَّرَفِ وَالْعُلُوِّ ما يقطع جميع علائق أوهام المشابهة بينه وبين صفات المخلوقين. That is to fill his heart with glorification of Allah and be certain that this attribute has reached the utmost in perfection, majesty and honor and highness in such a manner as to cut off any possible thoughts of tashbih. There is no anthropomorphism. There's no tashbih at all. It's perfect. Or resembles between his attributes and the attributes of his creation. There's no tashbih at all. He should fill his heart. فَيَكُونُ الْقَلْبُ مُنَزَّهًا مُعَظَّمًا لَهُ جَلَّ وَعَلَى غَيْرَ مُتَنَجِّسٍ بِأَقْدَارِ التَّشْبِيهِ. So his heart will become pure with majesty of Allah, the reverence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and belief in the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. غير متنجس, with not, it will not be najis, it will not be with the dirt, filth of the tashbih. It will not be uncontaminated, it will be contaminated without being contaminated with the filth of tashbih. فَتَكُونُ أَرْضَ قَلْبِهِ قَابِلَةً لِلْإِيمَانِ وَالتَّصْدِيقِ بِصِفَاتِهِ. So the land of his heart will become قَابِلًا, receptive to faith and belief in the sifat of Allah Ta'ala, التي تمدح بها, which he praised. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised وَأَثْنَى عَلَيْهِ بِهَا النَّبِيُّ صلى الله عليه وسلم. Even the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, على غير قوله, like his statement, as Allah says, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. There's nothing like him and he is the all-hearer and the all-seer. وَالشَّرُّ كل الشر في عدم تعظيم الله. And the evil is the worst evil في عدم تعظيم الله, if not having تعظيم of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وأن يسبق في ذهن الإنسان is not to glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And يسبق في ذهن الإنسان أن صفة الخالق تشبه صفة المخلوق. That the صفة الخالق is similar to, resembles the صفة المخلوق. That is the evilest of the thoughts. فيضطر المسكين أن ينفي صفة الخالق بهذه الدعوة الكاذبة الخائنة. So he's forced, this miskin person, this poor soul is forced to deny the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the creator, on the grounds of this false claim. بهذه الدعوة الكاذبة الخائنة. False claim, false deceptive claim. القاعدة السابعة, the seventh principle. The seventh principle is ayatu sifati laysat min al-mutashabih. The ayat of the divine attributes are not ambiguous. So many people, what the Shaykh is saying, that they will say, oh, these are mutashabih ayats, ambiguous verses. We don't know the meaning of it. That is incorrect. We know the meaning, but we don't know the kayfiyah. That we don't know the house. نعم. For example, ذكر الشيخ الشنقيطي رحمه الله أن كثيرا من الناس يطلق على آيات الصفات اسم المتشابه. Sheikh Shanqiti said that many people describe these ayat, these verses are ambiguous. We don't know. Mutashabih, they say these are mutashabih ayat. But this way, وَهَذَا مِنْ جِهَةِ غَلَطٍ مِنْ جِهَةٍ غَلَطٍ. It is from the direction جِهَةِ غَلَطٍ, and this is the direction of wrong. It is a wrong, it's a mistake. غلط. ومن جهة قد يسوق كما بينه الإمام مالك ابن أنس بقوله, in another way it could be acceptable. So there's wrong and there's right. So it's not completely mutashabih. No. Like Imam Malik says for istiwa, al-istiwa'u ghayru majhul. Istiwa is not unknown. That means we know what is istiwa is. That is rising. وَالْكَيْفُ غَيْرُ مَعْقُولٍ. And the kayf is something which is not understandable. We don't know the hows of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sifat, actions. وَالسُّؤَالُ عَنْهُ بِدْعَةٍ. If anyone asks, كَيْفَ الْإِسْتِوَاء? How is the istiwa? That is bid'ah. It's an innovation. Nobody else should ask this. وَالْإِيمَانُ بِهِ wajib. And believing in it is obligatory. So 4 things which you have to believe. 4 things. كذلك يقال في النزول. Same thing could be said about Allah, other attributes. النزول غير مجهول. If somebody says, I don't believe that Allah descends, na'udhu billah, on the sama dunya, on the heavens, sky of the world, sky of the world. You have to say, النزول غير مجهول. Nuzul is not unknown. We know what is nuzul, descending. والكيف, we don't know the kayf. والكيف غير معقول. And how he does it, we don't know. It's not understandable. وَالسُّؤَالُ عَنْهُ, I should not ask, how does Allah descend? I should not ask. وَالْإِيمَانُ بِهِ wajib. And you should believe in it. وَاتْرُدْهُ فِي جَمِيعِ الصِّفَاتِ. Then apply it to all the sifat also. لأن هذه الصفات معروفة عند الله. Why? You might ask why? Because this is known among the Arab. لأن ما وصف به الخالق السماوات والأرض منها أكمل وأجل وأعظم من أن يشبه شيئا من الصفات المخلوقين. The Arabs knew what is nuzul, what is istiwa, they knew. But in the case of Creator, they are too perfect, too majestic, and too great to resemble any of the attributes of the created beings. No comparisons at all. كما أن ذات الخالق, like the same thing, like the essence, that of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala jalla wa ala حق والمخلوقون لهم ذوات, and even the created beings have their essences. وذات الخالق جل وعلا أكمل وأنزه وأجل من أن تشبه شيئا من ذوات المخلوق. Too great to resemble the essence of his creatures in any way. It's not applicable. So that is the 6th qaida, that you should not say, oh, this is mutashabih. The 8th principle, al-qa'idatu الثامنة, ليس ظاهر الصفات التشبيه أو ليس ظاهر الصفات التشبيه حتى تحتاج إلى التأويل. The apparent meaning of the attributes does not imply tashbih. Just, you can't reject the apparent meaning just because you think it is tashbih, so there's no need to find a different interpretation. Okay, so this is the he explains some usuli fiqh ruling here. المقرر في الأصول أن الكلام إن دل على معنى لا يحتمل غيره فهو المسمى نصا. لا يحتمل غيره فهو نصا. So there's a word in the Arabic language, and now that word can have only one meaning. One meaning, that is called Nass. And there's no other interpretation is there in it. كَقَوْلِهِ تَعَالَى تِلْكَ عَشْرَةٌ كَامِلَةٌ, making 10 days in all. Now nobody can come and say, oh, it's 9 days, it's 11 days. No. Allah says, Tilka asharatun kamila. There's only one meaning to it. That is Nass. Correct. There's no possible second interpretation. Those are 10 days that you have to fast. فَإِذَا كَانَ. Now the second stage is, فَإِذَا كَانَ يُحْتَمَلُ مَعْنَيَيْن. Now there are 2 meanings. Okay, it could be this, it could be that. There are 2 meanings which are coming. There are ihtimalain, possibilities. This could be this, this could be this. وَإِمَّا أَنْ يَتَسَاوِي بَيْنَهُمَا. And that's these 2 possibilities are same. Right? It could be this, it could be this. So these are same. فَإِنْ كَانَ الْإِحْتِمَالُ يَتَسَاوَى بَيْنَهُمَا فَهَذَا الَّذِي يُسَمَّى فِي الْإِصْطِلَاحِ. So when the 2 possibilities are same, they are called al-mujmal. They are called al-mujmal in usul. كما لو قلت عدا اللصوص البارحة على عين زيد. Ada attacked, the thieves attacked last night on the Ain of Zayd. So what is this Ain of Zayd? Because in Arabic language, Ain means so many things. فَإِنَّهُ يُحْتَمَلُ أَن تَكُونَ عَيْنُهُ الْبَاصِرَ عَوَرُوهَا. It could mean they have made him one-eyed, because Ain in Arabic language means an eye. Or عَيْنُهُ الْجَارِيَةِ. Or the other is the flowing river, a stream of water. Ain also means فِيهَا عَيْنٌ جَارِيَةٌ. River, غَوَّرُوهَا, they have made a dam for it. They have stopped it, so there was a river flowing. It could mean that. أَوْ عَيْنُهُ ذَهَبًا, or his ayn could also be wealth, means his gold and silver. وَفِدَّةً سَرَقُوهَا, they stole it. So what do you mean by ayn here? So all these meanings could be possible. So this is called mujmal. This is called mujmal. فهذا مجمل. So this is an example of mujmal. وحكم, and the ruling of mujmal is أن يتوقف عنه إلا أو يتوقف عنه إلا بالدليل يدل على التفصيل. There should be some evidence which will give you some details, right? Logical, right? There should be some details, like is it your real eye or the river or your gold and silver? There should be some evidence. So if you don't have any evidence, you have to say, I don't know, it could be anything. You don't know, you have to do tawaqquf, you should stop. أما إذا كان نصا صريحا فالنص, but if the text is clear and unambiguous, فالنص يعمل به, and then we should follow it. There should be action. If it is clear, there's only one meaning, عشرة كاملة, you have to follow it. ولا يعدل عنه إلا بالثبوت, or يعدل عنه إلا بثبوت نسخ. You cannot move from this unless there is somebody says, okay, this has been abrogated, right? There should be some evidence to say this is abrogated. Abrogation has happened. Okay, now what will happen if these two meanings, one is slightly more. Okay, it has two meanings, but one is slightly more powerful. So that is called Zaahir. فَإِذَا كَانَ أَظْهَرُ فِي أَحْدِ الْإِحْتِمَالَيْنِ فَهُوَ الْمُسَمَّى بِالظَّاهِر. And if the two possible meanings is more apparent, this is a little more. It's called al-Zaahir. وَمُقَابَلُهُ, and the opposite of it is, so the top one is called Zaahir, and this is called muhtamalan mazjuhan. We don't accept this. Unlikely. Muhtamal, there's a possibility, but it is mazjuh. It's not rajih, which is on top. Right? It is not the favorable one, it is the unfavorable one. We won't choose this. We'll choose the top one. So this is called Zaahir, the top one. This is called Muhtamal Mazjuh. Or you can just call Mazjuh. This is the Rajih Mazjuh. Rajih is the top one, and Mazjuh. وَالظَّاهِرُ يَجِيبُ الْحَمْلُ عَلَيْهِ إِلَّا لِدَلِيلِ الصَّارِفِ عَنْهُ. So Zaahir is the one which should be followed. Unless, so the top one, you should follow it. Unless there is an evidence which will turn it to this. It should have a dalil. كَمَا لَوْ قُلْتَ رَأَيْتُ أَسَدًا. If you say, I saw a lion, and فَهَذَا ظَاهِرٌ فِي الْحَيْوَانِ الْمُفْتَرِسِ. So this is like, you're actually talking about a lion, a fearful animal, muftaris. But وَمُحْتَمَلٌ, there is a possibility that you mean earlier رَجُلِ الشُّجَاعِ, that it is a courageous man. You could mean, oh, I saw a lion on the street. You could say, I saw a courageous man. But that is like mazju, unless there is an evidence. For example, if someone gives an evidence, I saw a lion on the street. I saw a lion on the street speaking to people. Right? We know that lions don't speak. So that evidence, there's sarif, which has changed the meaning to a courageous man. Because lions don't speak to people, so we know. وَعَلَى ذَلِكَ فَهَلِ الْمُتَبَادِرْ مِنْ آيَاتِ الصِّفَاتِ مِنْ, I don't know what. So when we read عَلَى ذَلِكَ, the ayat which speak of the attributes of Allah, such as يَدُ اللَّهِ فَوْقَ أَيْدِيهِمْ, I don't know, فَهَلْ, what is? Is it a question? So when we read, I think this is from هَلَّ يَهِلُّ هَلٍّ فَهَلُّ الْمُتَبَادِرْ مِنْ آيَاتِ الصِّفَاتِ. Solution. Hands of Allah that strikes a man. فَهَلُّ, beginning. Hallun, Allah yahillu is to begin or appear. فَهَلُّ الْمُتَبَادِرْ مِنْ آيَاتِ الصِّفَاتِ مِنْ نَحْوِ قَالَ يَدُ اللَّهِ فَوْقَ. The hands of Allah is, the hand of Allah is over their hands. وَمَا جَرَى مَجْرَى ذَلِكَ مِنْ مُشَابَهَةِ الْخَلْقِ, and whatever is attributing or you in tashbih to the khalq, حَتَّى يَجِبُ عَلَيْنَا أَن نُؤَوِّلَ وَنَصْرِفَ اللَّفْظَ عَلَى عَنْ ظَاهِرِهِ. Oh, this is a question. It's not. It's a question anyways. I thought it's halayal. It's not a fahal. Fahalil mutabadir min ayat sifat. So when the mutabadir, the one who goes to these verses like yadullahi fawqiya and other verses like that, hatta yajibu alayna, what is mandatory on us, and nu'awwila. So what is the sarif? Right? When you say Allah has a hand, yadullahi fawqa aydihim, what is the sarif which you say no? What is the evidence where you say no? Yad means authority, sultan. وَنَصْرِفُ اللَّفْظَ عَنْ ظَاهِرِهِ, and that we change the lafz on its ظاهر. أو ظاهرها المتبادل منها تنزيه رب السماوات والأرض حتى يجب علينا أن نقرأه على الظاهر من التنزيه. Or is the apparent meaning that comes to mind when we read it that the Lord of the heavens is above, resembling his creation, any of his attributes. So we accept this ayah in that context. So is that the apparent meaning that comes to mind when we read it, that the Lord of the heavens is above? We know there's no tashbih. So why should we reject the Zaahir meaning? Wal jawab. And the reply is Anna kulla wasfin asnada ila rabbis samawati wal ard. The answer to that. So some people say, oh, we want to change the meaning of hand to authority because we don't want to do tashbih. So he's replying that everything which Allah wasafa, kullu wasfin asnada ila rabbis samawati wal ard, every attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which he has described to himself, attributed to himself, فَظَاهِرُهُ الْمُتَبَادِرْ مِنْهُ. So the Zaahir is the one which should be chosen عند كل مسلم, with every person. وَالتَّنْزِيهُ الْكَامِعَ عَنْ مُشَابَهَةِ الْخَلْقِ, and Allah is completely above and resembles to his creation. So when he hears, is that the first thing which should come mutamadir, which should come to the Muslim's mind, is we are not doing tasbih at all whenever he hears this. فَإِقْرَارُهُ عَلَى ظَاهِرِهِ هُوَ الْحَقِّ. So the correct understanding is accepting the Zaahir meaning of it. Zaahir, we accept. وَهُوَ تَنْزِيهُ رَبِّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ عَنْ مُشَابَهَةِ الْخَلْقِ فِي شَيْءٍ مِّن صِفَاتِهِ, that we do not do tashbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with its creation, with his creation. فَهَلْ يُنْكَرُ يَنْكَرُ it's أنكر ينكر. نعم. فهل ينكر عاقل أن المتبادر للأذهان. And so any intelligent person, can he reject that the first thing which comes to mind, السليمة أن الخالق ينافي المخلوق في ذاته وسائر صفاته, is that the creator differs from his creation, his essence, in all of his attributes? لا والله, no, by Allah, no one will dispute it except those who لا يعارض في هذه إلا المكابر, only those who are arrogant. So we take the Zaahir meaning. So what? I don't know why. Can any rational person deny that the first thing that crosses the mind is that the creator differs from his creation in his essence and all his attributes? No, by Allah. So he's saying, yes. I think he's agreeing that yes, the first thought which comes is tashbih, yadullahi, Allah's hand. Now, but we have to take it on his Zaahir and not change it to just for tashbih. That's what I understand from this. Because it should be reversed, no? Can any rational person deny that the first thing that crosses the mind is that the creator is similar in his creations? It should be similar, I believe. Or he's reversing his logic and is bringing the statement in reverse way. Allahu A'lam. 6, 7, 8. We've done 3 qawaid. How many qawaid more? Okay, 9th qaida. We'll do this khalas. We are at the end of the qawaid. Then we can start the asma wa sifat in the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Haqiqatu ta'wil, reality of ta'wil. Now there are some people, they say we don't reject on the hand of Allah subhanahu, we just do ta'wil. We just do interpretation. So it says, ta'wilu alladhi futina bihil khalq. People are tempted with it. وَضَلَّ بِهِ الْآلَافُ مِنْ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ يُطْلَقُ فِي الْإِصْطِلَاحِ مُشْتَرِكًا بَيْنَ ثَلَاثَةِ مَعَانٍ. And led thousands, or you, led, he says, he translates that. At-ta'wilul ayat dalla. Okay, and ta'wil has led thousands of ummah astray, and they are shared in 3 things. The word ta'wil yutlaqu fil istilahi mushtarikan bainas. So the word ta'wil can have 3 meanings. First is yutlaqu ala ta'awwul ilayhi haqiqat al-amri fi thani hal. It could mean that things, it could mean to the reality of the hand fi thani hal. هذا هو معناه في القرآن. ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. That is, it shows the reality. The things develop and end up. That is the reality of how things are. That is the reality of it, the story. ذَلِكَ, like Yusuf al-Islam saw a dream, no? So the interpretation is future, what will come. ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ وَأَحْسَنُ تَأْوِيلًا. That is better and more suitable for final determination. So one meaning, it says determination. وَلَمَّا يَأْتِهِمْ تَأْوِيلُهُ, and even before the ta'wil has come to them. Fulfilled. وَيَوْمَ يَأْتِي تَأْوِيلُهُ يَقُولُ الَّذِينَ نَسُوهُ مِنْ قَبْلِ. That is the way things ultimately turn out. Abdullah Yusuf Ali's translation. On the day the event is finally fulfilled, those who neglect. So one meaning, he says, إِلَى حَقِيقَةِ الْأَمْرِ فِي ثَانِي حَالٍ. I don't know what he means by thani hal, but something like development to translate it as. Develop and end up. Thani hal is the second hal, okay. Not the first. I mean, pre-development, post-development, I guess he's talking about. وَيُطْلَقُ التَّأْوِيلُ بِمَعْنَى التَّفْسِيرِ. So ta'wil is the meaning of tafsir. Like if you read Ibn Jarir, like he says, he uses ta'wil هذه الآية. وهذا قول معروف كقول ابن جرير. And this is very famous. Ibn Jarir, القول في التأويل قوله تعالى كذا. When he says ta'wil and so on, that means ay tafsiruhu. It means tafsir. So previous people, ta'wil was a good word. It meant tafsir. Later on, people start doing wrong ta'wil, so ta'wil became a bad word. وَأَمَّا فِي اصْطِلَاحِ الْأُصُولِيِّينَ فَالتَّعْوِيلُ, as per usul, ta'wil means هو صرف اللفظ عن ظاهره المتبادر منه لدليل. Ta'wil means what? There's Zaahir, no, the top one. You remember the Zaahir and Marjuh, Muhtamal Marjuh. So changing the Zaahir meaning to this, which is first springs to mind. Mutabadir ila dhihan minhu li dalil, on the basis of evidence. So that is called ta'wil. Okay, so now can there be a right sarf, that is right change from the Zaahir, or there could be a wrong change, basis of evidence. There is evidence. وصرف اللفظ عن ظاهره المتبادل منه له عند العلماء الأصول ثلاث حالات. Now the three ways in which you can change. This is the top one. You have to change this to this. So the three halas. What are the three? إما أن صرف يصرفه أن يصرفه عن ظاهره المتبادل منه لدليل صحيح من كتاب أو سنة. You have a dalil sahih, you have a correct evidence, 100% correct, you can change this. So I'm like, can we do that? Yes. وهذا النوع من التأويل الصحيح مقبول لا نزاع فيه. There's no argument about. Nobody's arguing, oh, how did you change the ظاهر to the مرجوح meaning? What is the example? ومثال هذا النوع ما ثبت عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال الجار أحق بسقبه. Yeah, saqab means proximity, being close. Saqab. Also some said الجار أحق بسقبه. فالظاهر هذا الحديث ثبوت الشفعة للجار. So the apparent meaning of this hadith is shufa should be there for jar. Preemption, that is called shufa. Preemption means when you're selling a house, whom should you sell it first? If the neighbor wants it selling and there's some other guy who's not your neighbor, so there is a right for, you have to give it to your neighbor first. Decision on sales of neighboring property, you have to give shufa. Now is it wajib and all? It comes in fiqh, in muamalat, and when you should, what are the rulings? Like for example, some neighbors, what they want to buy the property, but they will devalue it. If it is $10,000 or something, they'll say, no, I'll give you $5,000 or something, because I'm your neighbor, I have a right. So we have to see all these things, and you have to ask about this to the scholars. وحمل هذا الحديث على الشريك المقاسم حملا لللفظ على محتل المرجوح أي ظاهر متبادر. But if we interpret this as referring specially to a neighbor whose property is contiguous, muqasim. So now what this hadith is done is, there's one house, there's another house, and they have common wall. The wall is a common, because previous days it was very costly to build one wall here and one wall here. So they used to have a common wall. So is it applicable to only for the one who's muqasim, who's sharing the wall? على محتمل مجهول غير ظاهر متبادر إلا أن حديث جابر الصحيح, because صحيح حديث جابر by فإذا وقعت الحدود وصرفت الطرق فلا شفاعة. When the boundaries are being drawn up, when the boundaries, like plotting, when you do a plotting, you'll say this is mine, this is yours, right? You'll plot the houses, but boundaries are there. وقعت الحدود وصرفت الطرق, and the routes are taking shape, right? You said, okay, 30 feet road, you should have 40 feet road or whatever. فلا شفاعة, there's no right of preemption. There's no preemption. So this hadith, we're changing the Zaahir meaning of any neighbor to a neighbor who is muqasim, who's sharing a wall. If there's separate plotting, my house, like nowadays we have my house and my neighbor's house, we don't share the same wall. I mean, there's one common wall, but it's all separate plotting and everything is plotted properly. There's no shufa. دل على أن المراد بالجار الذي هو أقرب بالصقبه خصوص الشريك المقاسم. Knows that only a shufa is the one whose property is contiguous. That means he's sharing your wall. And this is allowed because we have evidence. We have evidence that also some said, "Fala shufa, no shufa for the one who everything is fixed." No. فهذا النوع من الصرف اللفظ عن الظاهر عن ظاهره المتبادل منه لدليل واضح من كتاب السنة يجب الرجوع إليه. So this kind of interpreting, this ta'wil is fine from the apparent meaning, which first springs to the mind on the basis of clear evidence from the Quran and Sunnah. It's called ta'wil as-sahih. This is correct interpretation. Very good job. وهذا تأويل يسمى تأويلا صحيحا أو وتأويلا قريبا. This is called تأويل صحيح or تأويل قريب. تأويل قريب. Okay. Second تأويل. So all about تأويل, he's giving explanation, types of تأويل. الثانية هو الصرف اللفظي عن ظاهره المتبادل منه لشيء يعتقده المجتهد دليلا. The word is interpreted in a way other than the apparent meaning, which first springs to the mind. So you're changing the first meaning which comes to the mind and taking something else because the scholar believes that to be an evidence. It's not like a clear evidence. The scholar believes this is an evidence which changed the Zaahir to the marjuh. فهذا يسمى تأويلا بعيدا. This is like far بعيد, far تأويل. ويقال له فاسد, and this is called fasid also. تأويل بعيد and sometimes corrupt, fasid. Which I think it's an evidence which it's not an evidence. ومثل له بتأويل أبي حنيفة لفظ امرأة. Like Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala, he said the word imra'a fi qawlihi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أيما امرأة نكحت بغير إذن وليها فنكاحها باطل. Any woman who gets married without the permission of her guardian, her marriage فنكاحها باطل. And in the Hanafi fiqh, if you know, it's allowed for a woman to get married without her wali's permission. But the قالوا in this thing حمل هذا على خصوص المكاتبة تأويل بعيد. And so Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, he said here imra'a, the word imra'a means it is mukataba, it's a slave woman, it's not for all. So free woman can marry without the permission. So even today they get married, the ahnaf, but we know there's a hadith very clear, فَنِكَاحُهَا باطل. So some repeated it 3 times now. But they get married. Even in our countries, people run away, lovers, and they get married. لأنه صرف اللفظ عن ظاهره المتبادل منه. But the correct is this, the first meaning is imra'a, right? That is a woman, any woman. لأن أي, because the Prophet says أيما امرأة, the ma is extra here, so أيما, whichever أي امرأة صيغة عموم. It's a sigha of general. It's a little bit usul fiqh now, but if you understand usul fiqh, is so interesting. It shows umum. You'll understand how scholars work. You go behind the theater, kind of how everything works. وأكدت صيغة العموم بما المزيدة للتوكيد. Interpreting this is to refer a specific case فحمل هذا على صورة نادرة في المكاتبة حمل اللفظ على غير ظاهره من غير دليل. So changing the meaning that imra'a here refers to a mukataba is not correct. Changing it from the meaning which first springs mutabadir ila dhihnihi without any evidence for doing so. Woman is a woman. How can we change it to mukataba? That is without any evidence. Third, أما حمل اللفظ على غير ظاهر لا للدليل فهذا لا يسمى تأويلا في الاصطلاح بل يسمى لعبا. And as for ta'wil, changing the zahir to the marjuh without any the evidence, there is no evidence at all, it is not called ta'wil, it is called la'ib. You're just playing with the verses. لأنه تلاعب بكتاب الله وسنة نبيه صلى الله عليه وسلم, because he's playing with the book of Allah and his sunnah of his messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم. ومن هذا التفسير غلاة الرافض. So we have some Rafid Shias interpret the ayah إن الله يأمركم أن تذبحوا بقرة قالوا عائشة نعوذ. They say Allah commands you to slaughter a cow. They say قالوا عائشة, this refers to Aisha radiallahu anha. How can you say this stuff? So this is for Aisha radiallahu anha. They say نعم this ومن هذا النوع صرف آيات الصفات عن ظواهرها إلى محتملات ما أنزل الله بها من سلطان. This kind of misinterpretation, it's called misinterpretation or playing, interpreting the ayats which speak of the attributes of Allah, distorting them from the apparent meanings to unlikely meaning for which Allah has not revealed any authority. كَقَوْلِهِمْ إِسْتَوَى بِمَعْنَى إِسْتَوْلَى. Like they're saying istawa means istawla, possess, take control. فَهَذَا لَا يَدْخُلُ فِي اسم التَّأْوِيلِ. This cannot be entered into ta'wil. لِأَنَّهُ لَا دَلِيلَ عَلَيْهِ الْبَتَّةَ. There is no evidence for it at all. Absolutely no evidence. Given evidence that istawa means istawla. No evidence. وَإِنَّمَا يُسَمَّى فِي اصطلاح أهل الأصول لعبا. And this usul, the scholars of usul call it playing, لعب. لأنه تلاعب بكتاب الله جل وعلا من غير دليل ولا مستند. He has played with the book of Allah with no evidence and no basis. فهذا النوع لا يجوز لأنه تهجم على كلام رب العالمين. This is not permissible because it's an assault at the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. والقاعدة المعروفة عند علماء السلف أنه لا يجوز صرف الشيء من كتاب الله ولا سنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن ظاهر المتبادر منه إلا بدليل يجب الرجوع إليه. That it is not allowed to change the meaning of anything in the books of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the sunnah from the zahir which first springs to the mind, mutabadir ila dhihnihi, illa bidalil, except there is an evidence which must be referred to. So this is the 9th qaida, which is very important. Right? Don't change the meaning of zahir without any evidence, or which you think it is an evidence, but it's not a correct evidence at all. نعم جزاkallahu khairan barakallahu feekum subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.